Hi, my name is Eric Ting. I am the director of the Bluest Eye at Hartford Stage. You know, there's a lot of, when we talk about adaptation, when we talk about sort of taking something, a piece of work like a novel like Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, and adapting it for the stage, there's actually a number of different levels that we go through in that. One of the levels certainly is what Lydia has done, which is she has taken this amazing, amazing novel and she has transformed it into a piece for the stage that lasts approximately 90 minutes. So anyone who's ever had to deal with this sort of thing, or anyone who's ever gone to see a movie that was an adaptation of a book, understands what it's like, what it means to adapt something that is a novel that is experienced in a very specific way, you know, in a slower way, in a way that we get to actually hold the book, open the pages, and look through it, and put it down from time to time, and come back to it. And then to see it in a movie form, for instance, which is 2 hours long, understands that often things get left out. And what Lydia has done with her adaptation of this book is that she has somehow amazingly succeeded at preserving the sort of the texture of Toni Morrison's tale, the texture of the voices, the quality of the world, the colors, the smells, the tastes. And she's preserved all of that in this 90-minute play. What we've lost are things that I'm sure people who know the book well will miss. But what she's done instead is she's chosen really to focus on the character of Piccola. So if you know the book, you know, in the book, The Bluest Eye, Piccola is not really a character. She's almost a non-character. That if you actually go through the book and you look at all the times that she actually says words, she says maybe a third of a page worth of text. You know, outside of the times when she's with the prostitutes living on the upper floor. But she's really a non-entity in the book, and that was intentional, I think, on Toni Morrison's part, to sort of, in selecting Piccola, she selected the person, the person within the community that was the most fragile, the most potentially victimized, the sort of the largest tragedy of it, by picking a girl, a young African-American girl. What Lydia chose to do in the adaptation was she actually took the character of Piccola and turned her into the central figure. She crafted a journey for her that takes her really from this very fragile, very quiet, very self-loathing, very disconnected girl. And we follow her through her time with the McTeers, which is sort of the opposite, the diametrically, the exact opposite of the world that she grew up in, these two families, the Breedloves and the McTeers, and takes her through that journey, and then beyond that into these things that happen to her in her life until we get to the end of the play, which is really her madness, Piccola's madness. And she's sort of made it Piccola's play. And so the challenge then becomes, how do we take that play and then put it onto the stage and really connect with it? And there are many choices that a person could make. And what I chose to do with this production was to really commit to Lydia's choice, which was, in making it Piccola's story, what we decided to do was to look at the ways within which we could transform the play theatrically into almost a revelation of Piccola's world as well. So one of the things that we do in this play is that we take this idea of being put out, this idea of being put outdoors, which is a significant element of the story. One of the worst things that can happen to a family is to be put out, is to have no home to go to. And what happens to the Breedloves early on is that Piccola's father, Charlie, actually burns down their apartment, and so they're left homeless. And that act is what actually sends Piccola to live with the McTeer family. She sort of is placed with the McTeers for a period of time while her father is in prison for burning down the apartment, while her mother is living with the people that she works for, until they can get the family back together again. And what happens then is, what we thought of was taking this idea of being put outdoors, taking this idea of the sort of physical idea of being put outdoors and applying it to Piccola's psychological world. And so what we've done is we've asked ourselves, well, what is it that happens to Piccola in the course of the story that contributes to her being put outdoors psychologically, that contributes to her madness? And there are certain moments in the play that are significant events in her life. For instance, she has her first period while she's staying with the McTeers, and that becomes a moment in the story. And then, of course, there is the moment when she is raped by her father, which is another moment in the story. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to theatrically show this idea of being put outdoors on the stage. And there are interesting ways to do it. I can talk, I mean, I'll talk about it. I'll ruin it for you. For anyone who sees this, I'm ruining the play for you. No. But one way, for instance, one simple way of this is that right after she has her first period, Piccola is in bed with the two girls, and she's asking the girls what it means now that she's had her first period. She says, does this mean I can have a baby now? And the girls say, yes, but you have to find someone to love you. And she says, well, how do you do that? How do you find someone to love you? And the girls say, I don't know. That's their response to it. And the idea is that in the course of that scene, with these girls in the bed, it starts to snow on the bed. Just a very sort of sprinkling of snow starts to fall on the bed. And in that sense, what we're creating is this idea that the interior world is invaded by the elements of the exterior world. That shelter starts to give way. And so that physical shelter that's giving away, that's allowing the snow into the house and onto the bed, is also sort of a metaphor for the psychological shelter, that her having her period is what opens the door for the next series of events that happens to her. That the father's rape should lead to her being impregnated, and that her being pregnant should lead her to Soped Church's world, which leads to her killing the dog, which leads to her losing the child, which leads to her madness. So it's all tied in, and so it's the ways within which we can really bring that to the fore on stage. That's one way to do it. You know, another idea is really, frankly, just a remarkable cast. We have a remarkable cast, each of whom has a personal connection to the story of the Bluest Eye, and each of whom, and we've been finding in rehearsal, have really a profound reaction to the work that we're doing in the rehearsal hall, to the explorations that we're doing. That there is a real resonance with each of their personal experiences, each of their personal narratives are just so connecting with the story of this girl that all they have to do is stand on stage and speak the words, and the story and the truth of it comes through, which is really amazing.